Pathetic, Professor Jones' voice sliced through the lecture hall like a cold blade. If this is what you call critical thinking, I would hate to say what your definition of logic is. The class went silent, not a breath dared to move. Rows of students sat frozen, their pens hovering uselessly above half-filled pages. The sound of rain tapping against the tall windows became painfully loud in the stillness. Jungkook stood by the front desk perfectly tailored black suit, sleeves rolled up just enough to reveal the curve of his forearms. As he leaned over the podium, his eyes dark, sharp, and unreadable scanned the students like they were prey. He hated incompetence, or at least that's what he told himself. The truth was, he hated distraction more. And lately, she had become exactly that. Wine sat near the second row, notebook open, pen steady, gaze focused entirely on him, while others fit carried or whispered. She sat upright, listening as if every word he had mattered. She wasn't scared of him, not really. She respected him, admired him. That alone made him uneasy. Miss Park, his tone was slow, condescending. Would you care to explain why your answer suggests emotion rather than reason? This is literature, not your diary. A ripple of nervous laughter spread across the room. The poor girl he addressed shrank in her seat, stammering incoherently. Jungkook sighed, a sound so subtle yet heavy with disdain. Sit down, spare us the agony. His eyes flickered to wine for a brief moment. She hadn't laughed. Instead, she looked disappointed, her brows drawn slightly together. That faint disapproval unsettled him more than the student's fear ever could. Maybe she meant that emotion is part of reasoning, Professor. She said softly, careful but firm. Authors often use emotion as a tool to strengthen their logic, not weaken it. A dozen heads turned toward her. Silence stretched, heavy and tense. Jungkook's gaze lingered on her, unreadable, cold, but undeniably aware. He should have shut her down immediately. He always did. That was his rule. Never let a student challenge him. But instead, he found himself saying, Miss Wine, your insight surprises me. He straightened, slipping his hands into his pockets. For once, someone in this class used their brain. Laughter again, nervous, half forced, but this time his tone lacked the venom it usually carried. And while the others laughed, his gaze stayed on her for one heartbeat too long. Inside, something twisted. Why does she always look at me like she's trying to understand me? He thought she shouldn't. The rest of the lecture carried on, his voice sharp and steady as ever, but his mind wasn't. Every time he caught her riding her hair brushing over her cheek, her quiet concentration, he felt something he refused to name. When the bell finally rang, cheers scraped, murmurs filled the room, everyone eager to escape his tyranny. Next week's essay 3,000 words on the duality of perception in classical tragedy. Submit it on time or don't bother showing up. Students groan quietly, collecting their things. He ignored them until his eyes caught her again. She was the last to pack, her hand moving gently as she closed her notebook. She smiled politely when he glanced her way, just a faint curve of lips. Nothing more, but it hit him harder than it should have. He forced himself to look away. You plan on sitting here all day, Miss Vine? No, Professor, just finishing my note. Then finish faster. My patience isn't a shared commodity. Her smile faltered. She murmured an apology and left. But as she walked past him, the faint scent of her perfume, jasmine, and rain lingered. For the first time that day, Jungkook lost his train of thought. When the door closed behind her, he exhaled quietly and pressed his fingers against his temple. Idiot, he thought she's a student and you don't feel things for students. Yet, when he looked at her empty seat, perfectly aligned, neat notes left behind, that strange silence filled his chest. He told himself it was irritation, but even he didn't believe it. The lecture hall emptied like a storm had passed through. The air still carried the scent of coffee, paper, and nervous energy, the kind that always lingered after one of Professor Jones' classes. Wine walked briskly down the corridor, clutching her books to her chest, her mind replaying every word he said. He was cruel, brutally so, yet something about the precision of his mind, the way his voice held authority, fascinated her. It wasn't love, not yet. It was something raw, unexplainable, the kind of admiration that hurt to feel. She turned the corner sharply and collided with someone harsh. Books, papers, pens, everything spilled onto the marble floor. Oh my, I'm so sorry. Of course you are. She froze, her gaze snapped upward, and there he was, Jungkook in his crisp black shirt, sleeves rolled up, his eyes dark as storm clouds. He looked down at her like she had just disrupted the order of his entire world. I wasn't watching where I was, clearly. He crouched first, picking up the scattered papers with sharp, precise movements. His tone was cold, but his eyes just for a second softened when he saw her struggling to gather her notes. Their hands brushed a fleeting touch, fingertips against fingertips. It was nothing, and yet it wasn't. Wine froze, her breath catching. He pulled back immediately as if the contact had burned him. Be careful next time. You say that like you expect me to fail. His jaw tightened, he straightened to his full height, the tension between them thick enough to silence the hallway. I expect everyone to fail. It saves me from disappointment. The words were short, but his voice faltered slightly near the end. A fracture in the eyes, she noticed, though she didn't understand it. He handed her the last of her papers, fingers brushing hers once more, slower this time. Deliberate almost before he stepped back. You should go. Right. Good night, Professor. He watched her walk away, the soft click of her heels echoing down the hall when she turned the corner, gone from sight. He exhaled slowly, and where he had been holding his breath, she's just a student. He reminded himself, and you are a fool. The storm came 3 nights later. The university was clearly empty, corridors dark, windows rattling with rain, only his office glows with light, warm lamplight spilling over books and unmarked essays. Jungkook sat behind his desk, glasses low on his nose, the sharp lines of his face softened by fatigue. A knock sounded. He looked up, frowning. It's late. Who? The door opened before he finished. Wine stepped in, drenched from the rain, clutching her notebook to her chest. I'm sorry, Professor. I know it's late. I needed to talk. He leaned back in his chair, unimpressed but curious. About your grades, I presume, because there's no about you. That made him still. The air changed, heavier now, more fragile. Raindrops drummed against the windows like a warning. Miss Wine, you are dangerously close to stepping out of line. Then let me in just this time. Her voice cracked, soft but steady, and he hated how it stirred something in him. Pity, maybe, or worse, affection. She took a shaky breath. You don't have to pretend you don't notice, Professor. The way you look at me, the way you're kinder than you mean to be, I see it. And I know I shouldn't feel this, but I do. I like you more than I should. He rose slowly from his chair, every movement deliberate, precise, as if he was containing something dangerous inside him. For a long moment, he said nothing. The silence felt endless. Then he spoke, and his words cut like glass. Stop chasing me, Miss Wine. She blinked, heart flickering across her face. I'm not chasing you, I'll never love you. Her breath hitched, the words hitting her harder than she expected. He took a step closer, his tone sharp, defensive, but his eyes betrayed him, filled with something that looked too much like pain. You are confusing admiration with affection, and I have no time for childish fantasies. The silence that followed was suffocating. Wine's fingers trembled around her notebook. The light from his desk lamp painted her face in gold and shadow, and in that fragile glow, she looked heartbreakingly real. Then I'm sorry for bothering you. She turned, blinking back tears she refused to let him see. As the door clicked shut behind her, Jungkook stood still, jaw clenched, hands trembling slightly. He could still smell rain and jasmine in the air. He wanted to call her name, but he didn't. Instead, he sat back down, staring at the empty doorway. You did the right thing, he told himself. So why does it feel like you just destroyed something you needed? The next morning, something in the air had changed. One still came to class early as always, but there was no good morning, professor. No shy smile when their eyes met. She sat quietly, head down, taking notes without once looking his way. To everyone else, she looked the same, but Jungkook noticed everything. Her silence unnerved him more than her confession ever did. Miss Wine, your analysis on page 42 read it. His tone was deliberately detached, a test he wanted to see if she would flinch, if that nervous spark in her eyes would return, but she didn't even blink. I didn't complete it yet, Professor. I'll submit it later. No excuses, no soft apologies, just calm professionalism. He stared at her for a beat too long. The class waited tension thick as fog. I see, how disappointing. I assumed you would at least keep up the illusion of being my best student. She didn't even look up. I'm not trying to be anyone's best anymore, just my own. A faint murmur rippled through the class. A few students exchanged shocked glances. Jungkook's jaw flexed. That calm tone, that lack of reaction, cut deeper than anger ever could. He cleared his throat, masking the burn of irritation that crept up his chest. Then focus harder, Miss Wine. Mediocrity doesn't suit you. Noted, no tremor, no fear, just indifference. He moved on with the lecture, but his rhythm faltered. Every time she turned a page, he heard it louder than his own voice. Every time she ignored him, he felt it like a slap he couldn't justify. That evening, he stayed longer than usual, papers untouched, mind spinning. He didn't understand why her absence, her silence felt like punishment. Why does it bother me? He thought, staring at the empty seat she always occupied during study sessions. She's just a student, nothing more. But his pulse said otherwise. It was late again, nearing midnight. Most of the campus slept except for the library. Glowing faintly under dim yellow lights, Jungkook had come to drop off research materials for the literature department, his mind still wrestling with Wine's quiet defense. He turned the corner and froze. She was there, sitting across from another professor assistant, Professor Min, leaning over a stack of old texts. Her voice was soft, her laughter genuine. For the first time in months, she looked alive. Something unfamiliar twisted in Jungkook's chest. It was quick, ugly, irrational jealousy. He watched her point at a passage, smiling faintly as Min leaned in to read. The sight made something in Jungkook snap quiet, but violent enough to make his fingers curl against his palm. He approached, footsteps echoing. Working late, Miss Vine. Both of them looked up, Vine blinked, startled but composed. Professor June, yes, I'm assisting Professor Min with some archival research. I see. And does this assistance fall under your coursework, or have you started volunteering your time so freely now? Professor Min laughed lightly, unaware of the tension. She's quite talented, Joan. I was just saying how thorough she is with classical literature references. A rare student. Jungkook's jaw tightened. Indeed, I'm sure she is. One caught the edge in his tone, the cold restraint, the irritation pulsing just beneath his words. For a moment, her heart stuttered, but she forced herself to stay composed. I enjoy helping Professor. It's peaceful. Peaceful, he repeated softly, almost to himself, and louder. Strange, I didn't think you sought peace. You seem to prefer challenge. The way he said it low mere deliberate me. The silence stretched painfully. Min excused himself politely, clearly sensing the tension. When it was just the two of them, Jungkook took a step closer, his voice quite cold. You have been avoiding me. No, Professor. I have just been learning where not to look. That one line, calm, emotionless, hit harder than her confession ever did. He should have been proud. He had wanted her to move on, hadn't he? Then why did it feel like he had lost something he couldn't name? Good distraction doesn't suit you. Nor arrogance. His smirk faded for a second. The air between them burned with unspoken tension, frustration, longing, denial. Her eyes softened not in affection but pity. Good night, Professor. She gathered her things and walked past him. Her shoulder brushed his arm light as a breeze, and he turned slightly, watching her disappear into the dim corridor. The echo of her footsteps faded, leaving them alone with the sound of rain against the windows and the hollow weight in his chest. He stared after her, jaw clenched, heart pounding in quiet rebellion. Why does it bother me seeing her with someone else? She's just a student, isn't she? But the truth pressed harder with every beat of his heart. No, she wasn't just anything anymore. The annual academic symposium was the one hour of the year when John Jungkook allowed himself to wear something other than black. Tonight, a dark charcoal suit replaced his usual severe attire, but the same unreadable calm set on his face. The auditorium hummed with murmurs and applause. Professors, guests, students presenting their research. One stood on the stage, the spotlight hallowing her, reading her paper on the paradox of emotion and rational thought. Every word she spoke was measured, confident, a kind of poise who had dwelled into his students for years, yet never expected to see reflected back at him. He shouldn't have been proud, but he was. When the applause died down, he was asked to give his critique. He rose, straightened his tie, and walked toward the microphone with deliberate calm. Miss Wine's presentation was impressive, a notable improvement, though, if I may point out, some parts read more like personal confession than objective analysis. A quiet murmur ran through the room. He had done it again, turned phrase into a plate. Wine met his eyes for a heartbeat. The whole auditorium disappeared. Then she smiled, not shyly but knowingly. Perhaps that's because emotion and intellect are not enemies, Professor. They coexist even in people who pretend otherwise. The remark landed softly but with precision. A few professors chuckled under their breath. Students exchanged looks. Jungkook's lips twists, the faintest crack in his composure. He leaned a little closer to the mic. I see your confidence has grown. Just make sure it doesn't outweigh your content. I learned that from you. You taught me how to hide feelings, Professor. Congratulations. I learned from the best. For the first time, his expression faltered, the calm mask slipping just enough to reveal something raw underneath. Applause erupted, but he didn't hear it. All he saw was her walking off the stage, chin high, a quiet strength in every step. He had spent months teaching her restraint. Now she wielded it better than he ever could. Week later, the literature department buzzed with restless curiosity, whispers starting from one corner to another about the arrival of a new transfer student from Seoul National University. When Professor June entered the lecture hall that morning, the usual silence followed him, that heavy, spine straining hush his presence demanded. Yet, even his cold authority couldn't smother the excitement rippling through the room. The department had appeared at the doorway, smiling politely. Classmate Kang Taeun, a transfer student joining us this semester. The moment the young man stepped inside, wine's pen slipped from her hand, wide eyes, a sharp inhale. Recognition struck her like lightning. Taehyun, Kang Taehyun. He turned, and for the first time in years, she saw the same boy screen that used to light up her summers back home. It's really you, I can't believe this. Her laugh slipped out before she could stop it, genuine, free, unguarded. The class exchanged curious glances, but all Jungkook noticed was that sound, her laughter. Warm, careless, a sound she hadn't made in months. A sound she had never made around him. Jungkook's voice cut through the moment like a blade. If the reunion is over, perhaps we can proceed with the lecture. The entire class froze. Wine immediately straightened. Cheeks flushed. Taeyun gave an apologetic nod, but his grin remained unfazed, confident. And when Wine's lips curved again, even slightly, Jungkook's pen nearly cracked between his fingers. After class, the world outside was bright. Cherry blossoms swaying lazily in the courtyard breeze. Jungkook sat at his desk, paper spread before him, though. Not a single word registered through his office window. He caught sight of them. Wine and Taehyun standing beneath the pink cascade. She was laughing again, had tilted back. Taehyun brushed a stray blossom from her hair, his touch slow, lingering. Jungkook's jaw tensed, his pen still. He told himself it was irritation, not jealousy, but the lies crossed his throat. When footsteps echoed down the hall later, he didn't look up until her voice floated through the open door, soft, melodic, so achingly familiar. She walked past carrying a stack of books, staying right beside her, effortlessly taking half from her hands. Something in Jungkook snapped. Miss Wine. She turned, polite, smile in place. Yes, Professor. His tongue felt heavy, caught between pride and longing. He wanted to tell her to stay. To stop smiling like that at someone else, but instead, you have been active lately. Make sure your new commitments don't distract you from your thesis. Wine's lips curved not shyly, but with quiet defiance. Don't worry, Professor, I'm quite capable of balance. Then came Taeyun, leaning casually against the doorframe, confidence radiating. Don't worry, sir, I'll make sure she stays on track. Jungkook's expression didn't change, but the air between them did. Sharp, cold, crackling with unspoken tension. See that you do. They left together, their laughter echoing down the corridor, light and fading. And when the last sound disappeared, Jungkook leaned back in his chair, staring at the closed door, the silence suffocating. Once she's gone, she won't come back. He thought bitterly, and you'll only have yourself to blame. Outside, the cherry blossoms kept falling soft, careless, and unbothered by the man unraveling behind the glass.